I think that it is important to kind of note that nonprofits have a life. They're organic. They, and it's it has a growth process. First the seed, then the blade, then the flower. And I just wanted to point out on page 4 or 6 that you can have startup nonprofits, and your constitution is that it's board driven. That's how startups go. You have to have a board by law to get your nonprofit state status, which your nonprofit status that is designated by the state. And so you're board driven, and then you don't have any staff, and then you grow, and then you develop a staff, an executive director, and you may hire a program person, you may hire a development director. So much like cell division, your cell starts going from a single cell to a multi-celled organism. And then you move to the constitution of a board in a startup is kind of you grab anybody you can get of goodwill who has kind of like-minded people for a mission orientation. And then when you move to a program-sized nonprofit, here defined as not an emerging but an advancing organization, you bump into a dynamic that we often hear is your board is a third wisdom, a third wealth, and a third worker. You need that kind of a balance, among your board members. And you typically have an expanding professional staff where, you're moving towards some professionalism. And a corporate-sized nonprofit would be an advanced nonprofit. And whereas a startup is mainly board-driven, an advanced corporate nonprofit is very much staff-driven. And you have very experienced professionals, and the skew of your board is more towards a third wealth, a third wealth, and a third wealth. So that is kind of the life and the growth and the pattern of moving from infancy, adolescence, and maturity. Things like that. So, it may be that in the program-sized nonprofits, what I'm trying to suggest is you're going to be needing to have capital campaigns in your life cycle, because you're going to have a balance between board and staff working together, mobilizing for raising money for a certain programmatic objective. And then on a corporate size, you may have sufficient staff that you can have an ongoing major gift fundraising campaign, and you don't quite need the surges that and that energy that capital campaigns provide. That's only how things skew in a certain direction. Okay. This is a page that I like.
5 or 7.
5 or 7. The role of philanthropy in nonprofit revenue generations. Okay. Nonprofits are mainly driven by billings for services rendered, that being tuition, patient fees, membership dues, things like that. That's how you, what we crassly say is in healthcare, it is heads in beds. In schools, it is butts in chairs. That's what drives, the engine mainly. But also, philanthropy is that supplemental force that moves your school or your institution from being good to better. What we say is tuition does not cover the full cost of education, but it's philanthropy that moves an educational institution from being a good one to a great one. So that's where that is. And educational institutions is not, I mean, and human service organizations are not fully funded by the state, and insurance reimbursements, but philanthropy moves human service organizations from good to great. So, and then you have credit financing, particularly the larger you go, you move into bridge loans and bondings and things like this. But here's the thing, if you have a well-oiled machine in philanthropy, a good muscular development office, that is going to help your bond ratings. And you're going to be able to get more favorable interest rates because of your muscular fundraising program. Now this was kind of interesting. We were talking about, you know, accountants, bean counters versus resource development people who are, you know, are grow the pie people. But this was interesting. There was one place that I knew where an accountant gave an evaluation to his healthcare system, and he put, okay, we're worth X amount. And what was not included in that valuation was philanthropy, and how much year in, year out comes through philanthropy. And that is an asset value for that organization. So he undervalued the, you know, his valuation of the healthcare system because he did not, you know, think about, you know, by virtue of having a development office, we're raising an additional $20 million a year. Now that, you know, that's a huge, creates a huge swing in the evaluation. So I'm just wanting you to, through these comments and these anecdotal stories, I want you to develop a sense of the important role and the central role in the life of a nonprofit that resource development plays, you know. And if you're not defending your territory, then you're underserving, you know, the mechanics of resource development.
It seems like in our cases, everyone here, in their cases, we're not only, philanthropy is not only to make us from good to better, but just to be good, we need it. We rely on it just to survive.
Yeah. And exactly so. You know, you can't do it. And I would say that in annual giving, what philanthropy is doing really is shoring up the bottom line, you know. Trying to make the operations, you know, revenue and expenses balance. But it's in capital campaigns and legacy gifts where you really start seeing gear shifts. And you really start moving. And here's the other thing, folks, please do not think you can go through a capital campaign with all of its ancillary changes, new buildings, new people, new programs. Don't think you can go through a capital campaign and remain the same organization. You are moving from infancy to adolescence, or moving from adolescence to young adulthood. I mean, major giving shifts dynamics. It shifts board staff relationships. It just, you know, you can't remain the same. It is a catalyst for change.
It's like your puberty or your middle-age crisis.
I mean, that's what it is. And there's a certain awkwardness that comes in the transition times, you know, as you move from, you know, being a child to adolescence. I mean,
growing pains.
Yeah, it's growing pains. I can remember when I played basketball in high school, I was retraining a new body every year. I had I had to start all over, you know, it was the growing pains.
Yeah, because suddenly
The
too,
control
you're
structure.
the development department is sometimes telling the president or whoever, we need you to do this, we need you to do that. So it's almost like a switch as far as giving some orders.
That's got to be done tactfully.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing, we come in and make sure that that president knows this is gonna take up X amount of your time, prepare for it, know it. We're gonna need you to do these leadership gift solicitations, we're gonna need you to do these calls, and, that the development office will help you make that happen. So, with us being able to say that, I think it kind of paves the way.
One at least.
It's rare that you find a president or someone who really gets development and is willing to acknowledge the importance and the time it's going to take. When you do find one, it's wonderful. Yeah.
Okay, but I have seen instances where doctors move up to be CEOs. Something other than an accountant, something other than the MBA mold.
Which seems like an odd transferable skill.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and here's the thing. As you become more professional, it used to be that doctors used to be the hospital heads and no longer, because there's too much. They're great practitioners, but they're not great administrators. I can remember when in schools, it used to be run by a headmaster or head teacher.
Right.
And now what you have are heads of schools. And they may know more about running a school than they do about pedagogy
Right.
or education. Hopefully they know a little bit
Right.
about pedagogy. But that may be kind of a second language to their gifts and abilities as an MBA product.
And again, I've seen it in private schools where they really don't want to be the big schools. Part of the reason they're there is because it's small and it's intimate, and, class size, all this other stuff. So people have different. But growing doesn't always necessarily mean more butts and seats. I mean, your programs can grow. A lot of things to improve the education doesn't necessarily mean growing.
I heard a nun, a missionary nun speak to one Sunday. I love this. She said, "Growth is optional, change is inevitable."
Yeah,
And
that's good.
boy, it just really stuck with me a long time. Growth is optional, change is inevitable.
See,
Well, it's just nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
you can grow older and wiser, or just older.
Yeah.
But, there are people, and I've seen this in churches, where, they have this sense of being known, and they are comfortable there, and they really, don't want to change. And there's also going to be this tension that occurs when you're at that point of shifting a gear, and you can get into all kind of different struggles and complications, what I call the rub of community life.
Just like at Mississippi University for Women, when I was doing interviews, a lot of people were like, it was great up until they started letting men in, until they, this is growth,
Yeah.
this is change, but
Yeah.
some
So
people,
organic though,
Yeah.
Every system has its.
Yeah. Yeah.
and you'll have some people that love it and want to support it, and you'll have other people that say it should stay like it was. I mean, but your leadership needs to be on the same page as your mission. Now, your constituency is going to be all over the place. They always will be.
The detractors of growth typically inaccurate when they think things can stay as they are, as successfully as they are in perpetuity.
Well, change is inevitable, I would
Yeah.
say.
Well, I mean, there's this change and then there's this
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
This is what I think is a human hunger. I think that this is universal. I think we hunger for community, and we've got to convince people in the small organizations that we're going to be very intentional about community, and we're going to, you know, do different things to have different maybe cell groups as we grow, so that we can keep small, intimate, you know, community lives. And I'm not just speaking theoretically here, I'm thinking about the importance of creating community with our donors. They are hungry for community too, in one way, shape, or form. And I'm thinking that that community can hold, and is more apt to hold, if it is a strong community, even amid the changes that are inevitable, you know, that our world necessitates. I mean, you know, we can't stay the same. We die. Let us go to egregious errors.
Page 8 or page 6?
Not having a major gift program or capital campaign, not conducting a feasibility study, and getting a sense of what the donors want, not having a plan, not working the plan, having a revolving door of development officers. I tell you what now, it takes a while to, you know, to develop relationships. And, you know, what we are encouraging organizations to do is to pay your, you know, development people enough such that they want to stay and can develop the relationships, the long-standing relationships with people. Because it is upsetting to a nonprofit constituency, you know, when relationships change.
What's that average? Once a person comes aboard, that you start seeing some product of your planting seeds.
You know, I've seen some fun facts to know and tell along those lines. A lot of times, a development officer will come in and raise his or her salary and only raise that amount in year 1. And in year, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5, you start seeing some exponential bounces, you know. Well, a lot of times people move because that is the only way they can get a salary increase.
Right.
And what we're encouraging and we're informing our clients that, listen, that's kind of the nature of development. They move because they get a salary increase. Better for you to offer, you know, more incentives to stay, you know, increase the salary. And, by the way, what gives you the latitude to do that? Look at cost to raise $1. You know, that's the metric that tells you, okay, we can afford to do that. We're within the zone where we're not spending too much to raise $1. And by the way, if we don't invest, you know, that means that we're not getting a 500% return and a 400% profit, because typically it's like you give resource development 20 cents, you raise $1. So that's our metric. And if you cut us 10 cents out of that 20 cents, you're going to lose 50 cents and 40 cents of profit. So you cut resource development at your own risk.
And is that where the accounting side of the head we had this situation at my university a few years ago. I've been very close with them for a long time, but a few $1,000s of salary may cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. And like there's this school that, you know, I was just talking with my friend, he's an accountant, best friend. And, you know, they're saying what we're going to do is cut back on resource development and put that money in admissions. And I said, okay. But, you know, it could be that you keep resource development and you get a 500% return, 400% profit, and you can use that money to hire, you know, a new admissions person. So, you know, why not, you know, do it that way.
In your feasibility studies that you do, because y'all work with us, do you help the powers that be or the development office or whatever to take a look at tenure of people and to come and go?
Oh, yeah.
People in
We
departments?
do it, yeah, like in the gap analysis, we look at those things, yeah, we do. One thing I was thinking too, I know with the one other children's home we worked with, they had some people who were really hopeful of a raise, and it was not, you know, they weren't sure how to do that across the board because they all talked, and if you gave one, you had to do the other. They worked up almost like a system where it was a bonus system, and it wasn't necessarily based on the amount raised. It was quality cultivation visits and solicitations and different things that, you know, worked for them. So they were able to, you know, reward the ones who really got out there and did what they needed to do instead of just doing a raise across the board. So sometimes you can kind of get creative, incentive programs and things to help some of these issues when you fear that you've got a good person that might be thinking about leaving without, you know, having to give raises across the board and that kind of thing, because that's small places especially, you know, in that situation they were talking. Some of them were getting cars and some of them weren't getting cars, and they were so they were having to work something
Or you
out.
did get the type of car you were I thought I was going to get a Highlander, and I ended up with a little Jeep. But I mean, I'm not complaining.
Times are tight.